Welcome to Bridging the Business Gap, helping connect people, business and technology. Hosted by Jan-Hendrik Stricker and Phil Burgess.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Bridging the Business Gap. It's your host, Phil Burgess here. I'm joined by my colleague and co-host, Jan-Hendrik Stricker. So, how are you today, Jan?
I'm doing very fine. Thanks for asking, Phil. We have a great guest today with whom we will discuss AI, find out whether it's just about true value or an expensive hype. And this guest is called Matthias Meyer-Pundsack. Matthias, you live in Cologne in Germany, and you have been a former CIO. Can you talk about yourself a bit and introduce yourself to our listeners?
Yeah, hi, Jan. Hi, Phil. Thanks for the opportunity to join your podcast. So my name is Matthias. Jan already said I'm living in Cologne, and although I studied at university science and chemistry, I'm not be a deep technician or a deep IT techie. My experience, especially the past 15 years and of course, the past 2 to 3 years regarding AI is more, of course, IT management, because my former job was the role of a CIO. My role was more beside the IT management you said already, to bridge the gap between IT and business. So my focus areas the past 2 to 3 years were, of course, AI. Yeah, I have some expertise in implementing an AI and find the right use cases, but also to make sure that AI is working in a safe and proper way, meaning implementing AI is also a question of, do we have the right level of cybersecurity? So there are some perspectives you need to have on the radar when you're talking about AI or try to implement AI.
Definitely. Sounds very interesting. Yeah. I think we get some perspectives covered in this call. Maybe not all of them, but at least a few ones.
I think one of the things that strikes me, Matthias, based on what you sound, it's great to have you here. You know, everybody's talking about it. It's the biggest hype that there is. And yet I feel a lot of the executives and business executives can't answer a simple question. You know, are they really getting, or what are they really getting for their money? And there's lots and lots of sort of proof and anecdotes that most of the attempted applications of AI seem to be failing to return value. Do you think that there are companies who are genuinely creating value with AI application, or is it just a funding of a digital vanity project so people have got it on their CVs?
I would say both. I think there are CEOs who initiate AI projects just to have some digital vanity project. Yeah, just to say, here I have budget for AI and we do in AI. We have some smart and funny stories to tell other CEOs. But there are other CEOs, and at least every CEO need to have successful implementations. That means to achieve some kind of effectiveness or cost-saving results within the company. And I'm sure that the expectations from shareholders and also from the market is getting higher and higher. The expectation is actually much higher than the results or real capability.
Where do you think on the sort of hype cycle we are on that? This efficiency versus effectiveness thing. I mean, is it just that people can use it to do things faster, and then what are they doing with the time that releases?
I read the book from Tobias Zwingmann, and he has a smart way to explain what is happening in the companies. So he is dividing the usage of AI in 2 categories. Category number 1 is what he called productivity AI. And the second one is what he's calling engineered AI. So you can talk about the naming, etc., but the relevant thing is productivity AI, from his point of view, is what companies are doing or using when they are using a Copilot, just a little bit of ChatGPT for dedicated purpose on your personal desk. Meaning the legal people are using ChatGPT or maybe some dedicated AI-based applications to check contracts. But the result is that they are a bit more effective and a bit faster in work. The result is they have 1 or 2 hours more a day because they are faster. And what are they doing with this 1 or 2 more hours? They go. So it's the same as you. What will you do when you have 1 hour more time on the day, but you have to fill your 8 hours? Then you drink coffee. And the result for the company in this productivity AI case is companies paying, but the result is not like we have more ROI or a cost saving or whatever. And the second category is an engineered AI. And this is a way to find out where are the places or the areas in the company, where are the right use cases to implement dedicated AI capabilities to get an improved EBIT. And that is the point.
It's interesting because it reminds me of the theory of constraints and Goldratt and Deming, from a manufacturing point of view. This idea that you can put in a faster machine at a certain point in the process, but actually it can be counterproductive because it is out of sync with the rest of what the outcome or the goal is. Automation is great as long as you know exactly where to put the machine.
Yes.
And I think there's an element of that still a solution looking for a problem. It's a technical solution being implemented by technical people without thinking about the overall business impact.
Yeah, and I think end-to-end is still on today. I was reminded by hearing what you say, Matthias, of business cases that I did in the past where we would also have productivity gains from higher degree of process automation, for instance, but turning potential savings into real savings when you have productivity gains of 2 or 3 hours, putting that together and saying, well, this times 4 is maybe 1 full-time equivalent, well, would only be valuable on paper, right? You cannot reduce your workforce by 0.25. You can only reduce your workforce by either 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth, right? So I think that leaves us still with a problem of how accessible is that value potential from productivity AI, right? And I would also question that productivity AI is worth the investments that companies make into AI, or is it maybe just about getting to know the technology, playing around with it? Because we as humans, we like playing around with new toys, with new stuff. Maybe is it that we need to cross that bridge of the productivity AI to get to what Swingman talks about when he says engineered AI?
Yes and no, a bit of everything. Yeah. So the Copilot is not just bringing 1 hour more for coffee drinking, but it helps companies to get the people into using AI and to get people to get familiar with AI. So there are still so many people in the companies don't like AI because they think AI will steal their job.
Mm-hmm.
So
you can see why, can't you? Given the amount of layoffs where it's been used as, let's call it a justification or an excuse or whatever your view on the market is, whether actually it's just a way of removing your cost or reducing your costs so you can invest in it, or what. You can see why people are afraid of it. What you're saying is, if you save those hours and those people are then drinking coffee, then the effectivity isn't good. Their productivity is an improvement. But what's the actual issue there? Is it the fact that they're not thinking about why they're actually deploying it? They're thinking more about how to deploy it and how to get it up and running. What do you think?
First of all, I don't think that all the layoffs in especially in Germany are coming 100% from AI. Probably the most of the companies are saying AI, but also without AI, they would do the layoffs because of the general market and economic situation.
It's a narrative wrapper.
Yeah.
I think that's what they're using it for.
And the shareholders actually like it. Apparently, if you link a layoff to AI, your share price goes up. Whereas if you say, well, it's because we're rubbish actually running our business, then the share price tends not to go up.
Yeah. But there are companies. So there are companies having the right use cases to implement AI, like insurance companies, like finance companies, where AI brings the right capabilities or the right opportunities. And I think when there are layoffs, then this is AI induced.
Mm-hmm.
But the most of the other companies is coming more or less from the actual economic situation. But coming back to people, I still think it's necessary to get the people into using AI in the companies. But this is a way for the employees or the people to get familiar with how is AI using, what are the AI capabilities. And that in the next step should help to find the relevant use cases. If you do not go this way, then nobody knows where are the AI use cases in the company. So first of all, the first step in the company is to train and teach all the employees, more or less all of the employees, using AI. Get familiar with AI. Don't be afraid of AI. Of course, this is a bit difficult, yeah. So, but this is the first step.
Yeah, I think that's interesting you say that, Matthias. The other day I was attending a conference in which one of the keynote speakers was Philipp Herzig, so the chief AI strategist of SAP. Mm-hmm. And he was basically saying the same. He said, guys, don't miss that train, right? Even if you don't know yet how much value you, your companies, your organizations will reap from this, it's going to be a lot. And he said, I also think that if you miss that train, you'll miss any opportunity of having access to that value add, that benefit that is to come from AI. So don't miss the train. Start playing around with it. Start making up your mind about the relevancy of that AI. Now, honestly, that was very much perceived as a very product-oriented and even marketing-driven pitch.
Of course.
Yeah, he would say that, wouldn't he?
He would. I mean, he's paid for it.
Has he got a vested interest in you doing that?
And I had the same reaction, but then I thought, well, if I was to challenge myself, and this is what I'm trying to do with you now, isn't it true that before you have the maturity to decide whether a use case is really a structural element of a sustainable benefit for the company, so to find those use cases, to make sure that you have the right input. So this is also, by the way, where a lot of companies, I think, get it wrong today, because they're using low quality data for AI scenarios that will have low quality outcomes, right? But if you don't have the maturity and you don't even know what you're talking about, and you have no experience in using AI whatsoever, will you ever be able to identify those good opportunities and to make things right in the first place?
I actually agree with something Matthias is talking about. He's talking about increasing awareness, okay? And basically increasing that. Your big issue to some extent, I think, is the way that the technologists and a lot of IT companies have been positioned is basically pushing stuff. I also think that what Matthias is saying is completely correct. When S/4HANA, when that was first announced and started, the first reactions, even within SAP itself, were, oh, this allows you to do things faster. But actually, the value case for it is it allows you to do things that you could not do before. And I think that is what I was saying about the maturity cycle. It's still on this, oh, this will make it go faster. So it's very much that sort of a, get it. But is the actual key thing to identify things that now are possible that were not possible before from a business point of view? And the main focus is the business point of view, because otherwise all you're doing is stuff that just keeps you busy. So, is that where we're at? You've still got to raise the awareness, because otherwise people will not see it, will not see the opportunity. But is it that we're looking in the wrong place almost with the opportunity?
Absolutely right, Phil. In companies, the discussion about the usage of technology or software stacks is starting usually not at the right point. During the past, let's say, 10 years, business people came to me as a guy who's in charge for the IT management, and they said, I have the right technology here. I would like to have this software, and then of course software as a service stack. So in the meantime, so it's and sometimes they don't ask. They just say, I took my credit card, and now I have a subscription here for what kind of ever here, software as a service stack. And here is my technical solution. And then you are asking, what kind of problem did you have where you now need the software stack? And sometimes they look into my eyes and they say, ooh, the software is so cool. So the problem is that a lot of business people, don't have a reasonable understanding of the business challenge or business problem, but they already have any kind of solution. And then having this trend in the companies, at the end, after 5 or 10 years, you have a huge zoo of software as a service stacks. And everybody is asking, why do we have so many stacks? And you can say, or you should say, because you do not think about your business problem, you just think about technology. And then you have to try to get it vice versa. To get the business people understanding the capabilities of new technology, AI technology, but then bring them into a discussion, where do you have the business problems? And having this discussion, you will find out that the half of the business problems you can use by anything else but not IT.
It's almost like asking the question is the important thing. I mean, I think it's Rory Sutherland, the marketing guy, says, quite often it's good to have a marketing campaign because of the questions it asks about your business. Whether you run the campaign or not is almost secondary. Actually creating one makes the thinking process go ahead, and it asks questions about the business and what the business needs. And I think that's an interesting concept in itself.
It seems like the governance topic, Matthias, that you touched upon is coming into the focus and center of many, if not all, CIOs. Today, more of a feeling that they must get this governance thing right, because otherwise it's going to bring them more mess to manage afterwards than they had ever before.
Absolutely, but start talking to the CEO of a more or less mid-sized company, talking with him about governance, and he will answer you, and I don't need any kind of bureaucracy. So you have to balance. Depends also on the size of the company, etc. But you have to balance. But sure. Absolutely right.
I read an article from a developer, and basically they're saying that it's speed that's all important. And what's then being sacrificed is governance and control, because it's seen to actually slow it down. And the big thing is speed. As I quite often say, I used to work for a guy called Sanjeev Sidhu, and Sanjeev always used to say, it's not about speed, Phil, it's about velocity. You have to be going quickly in the right direction.
Yeah, Phil, absolutely. It's the right direction. That's the point.
And I think that's one of the key things that, you talk about. There's a great thing about COBIT. Is it COBIT? And what's the main criticism of COBIT? Well, it's all embracing. It gives you great control over running enterprise environments. What's the great criticism? It's as complex as hell. So it slows things down. But the big issue, I think, that you touched on, I'd be interested in your view on it, is that it can compromise now that acceleration and hurdling can probably potentially compromise cybersecurity if you don't follow at least certain characteristics from a governance point of view. There's governance and governance. There's the basic things of, apparently a lot of the developers in a number of online stores were allowed access to patch the real life systems without tests. And that's just like, how many bullets will it take before you suddenly realize you've shot in your head? How would you achieve that balance, though, Matthias, in practical terms?
So governance is not always the same. So there are different levels of governance. So you just have to find the right level of governance. Yeah. So you can do it or implement it in a much complexer way for bigger enterprise companies. You can do it on a much lighter way for smaller companies. But you have the point, cybersecurity. Now we can open the discussion regarding vibe coding, the democratization of coding in companies. Yeah. So now everybody is doing coding.
When we compare this to previous experiences where we saw business bypassing IT, you mentioned the example of now business not only coming back from conferences with an idea, but with a SaaS solution. Now imagine that everyone in the company not only starts to bring an app, but starts to code. Is that even possible? Is that maybe not realistic? Because if I am a financial controller, I will not start vibe coding my own application, or will I? I don't know.
I'm quite sure you will do in the future, in the near future.
Yeah.
Of course you will do. But the controller is not used to produce safe code because you do not know the process or the framework how to make software safe. At least you need to implement as a company, smaller one, mid-size one, enterprise one. Yeah. So you need a kind of process and framework and governance to make sure that the piece of code the controller is producing with Claude Opus or whomever or Lovable or whatever. Yeah. You need to make sure that employees are following a dedicated process to make the software or software piece or software stack safe and secure.
Do you think that is just a development state? So are we in a situation where basically people have been sold a concept, but behind the scenes that the technology actually isn't up to physically delivering it? Because you could say, look, governance. Well, why is governance important? Well, what is involved in governance? It's to keep you safe. So if you could automate governance so that whenever you created something, by definition, the end result was to standard, to agreed compliance, to cyber safe, then what's wrong with letting everybody code?
They're not.
It's a bit of an ethical question, I know. Again, I'll just drop out there. I don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah.
I feel yes, because Jan-Hendrik and I have had discussions about why would you need standard processes in the future? Why would you need an ERP in the future? Well, structured data, standardized data, standard processes. So what? If they're all maintained by somebody, automatically the AI maintains them, creates them, monitors them, synchronizes and gets from the unstructured data the structure of data that you want. Why do you need standard processes anymore? Because the only reason we had them was cost of ownership, basically, and reduction of risk. If you can eliminate that and give it to a bunch of agents who look after that, make sure it's perfectly okay, why do you need ERP?
When you're expecting a dedicated results of AI working, you need structured data. But of course, AI, one step before, AI can help to structure the data. But do companies have enough quality of data?
But do you see that as a stepping stone, a development step? Because at the moment, basically, the capabilities of AI, if you like baby AI, needs that limitation or that constraint. Whereas if it becomes an adult, where it can structure and work out and look at the semantics and syntax of data and make sense of it itself, then the whole world will become one great data lake. And it will be accessed in different structured ways by very intelligent AIs, which format the data into the formats it needs. So you don't need structured data. And structured data seems to be one of the big things that is driving standardized processes and people like SAP. But again, I'd be really interested on what you think from an AI point of view.
Phil, from the pure data perspective, there is no need to have structured processes to get structured data. But there is more than one perspective using AI. So I would divide it into, we have the data perspective, and we have the process and transactional process perspective. So if we have, let's say, state-of-the-art AI architecture, usually you have a RAG architecture for the company knowledge, right? On the one hand side. And on the other hand side, you want the AI doing some kind of AI agent autonomous work. And for that, it is like triggering transaction, for example, in SAP. And for that, you need structured processes because you need dedicated authorizations for the AI. The AI agent shouldn't have the allowance to do everything. This is an authorization concept and model, because if the AI is allowed to do everything in the company, this is a tremendous lack of cybersecurity.
I agree. Fully agree, Matthias.
The attack vectors are still the same from outside.
Yeah.
But if you hack the AI by, I don't know, prompt injection, whatever, so you have a problem. So coming back, Phil, to your original question, structured processes or standardized processes for data, I would say not necessary. But having structured and standardized processes for safe and secure execution in the process, I would say yes.
I agree. I think it's the matter of maybe also maturity. So I wouldn't exclude that at some point in time in the future, there's going to be higher performing AI agents. But I still believe that companies need to be much more responsible of the business context they are providing to those agents, and that, for me, data quality is a core element of that. Governance is also a core element of that, and that needs to evolve. Companies have been refraining a lot from cleansing their master data over the past 15, 20 years, where that was already a harming factor for simple, pure transactional process automation. And a lot of companies got away with more complex architectures. With AI, if you want AI to be as performant as the expectations are today, you mentioned those, Phil, earlier, well, then I think it's going to take a few more years for companies to get to that maturity stage.
It's an interesting topic. You start to challenge and think about things if you take the capabilities forward of what it can and cannot do. Because the other thing you could say is it also would potentially drive a focus on outcome, a why rather than a what. So if you could allow people to work in a different way, but to produce standard outcomes, is that better than having a standard process which everybody follows? If everybody actually uses creativity to form the way that they do it more optimally, and then that is fed back and overall produces a better way of doing things, you end up in the same old way, which is you have one standard process. So it's a very interesting time we're in, where I could see if you take the capabilities forward a bit, and they're now talking about artificial intuition, then it's going to become a fascinating world where a lot of what the three of us take for granted, an underlying belief, isn't necessarily true anymore. I think it's fascinating. I also think that it's in a lot of big ERP companies' interests to push the data element. Because do they need it at the moment? My view, yes, from an AI point of view. But is it in their severe interests because it gives them a place to play in their old traditional stamping ground? Again, yeah. But, maybe outcomes, is it a focus on business outcomes that will help us drive adoption? Coming right back to where we were talking about awareness, is it that focus on outcome, not the shiny toy, the tool, but what it can do? Do you think we're focusing too much on the shiny toy and not what it would do, Matthias?
Both, always both. Of course, companies knew or know that they need to have AI in, but there is still not sufficient maturity in the companies where's the best fields to use AI. So this is a process. And the better the companies and the people are working with AI, the better they find out the right way and the right areas to implement AI. And I see ERP systems still in place in 10 years.
That's a bold statement.
Because, we have these auditors in place. Yeah, they have to approve balance sheets. Yeah. Yeah. So what shall they prove when there is an AI doing everything? Maybe the auditors have AI by themselves, but there's always a human who have to sign the approval. And I'm quite sure that this human who's in charge of the signature will not audit in 100% AI-based system.
Now, human in the cycle is another big discussion, isn't it? Because again, there's been some of that taken through.
Well,
okay,
we won't be able to tackle that aspect, but maybe in another episode. So, as we're coming towards the end, any final words? Any final thoughts?
Any great takeaways, Matthias? If you were going to give somebody three key takeaways or three key questions to go and ask on a Monday morning, or what are the three things that they should worry, be interested in, or ask about? What do you think?
Usually on Monday morning is quite different to Friday afternoon. So for a CEO or for the executives, only invest in AI where value can be named, set clear and of course measurable KPIs, and set the right expectation. Not follow the shareholder, not follow only the shareholders' expectation, and then follow the road. Not the road you sign for the next 5 years. So I would say the next 3 months.
That's another great topic about how the old 5-year roadmap is defunct in a VUCA environment. My goodness, that's another big, beautiful topic.
Thanks a lot, Matthias, for those insights. And I think your 3 takeaways are worthwhile being noted down by our listeners. I will definitely take note of them. And thank you very much for your time today. Hoping that you found this as interesting as Phil and I did. Didn't we, Phil?
We did. We ended up with even more things that we can cover in future podcasts, I think. So we'll probably end up getting you back, Matthias. I'm Phil Burgess. On behalf of me and my esteemed colleague Jan and our guest, thanks for everyone tuning in to another episode of Bridging the Business Gap. And we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for listening to Bridging the Business Gap, helping connect people, business, and technology. If you enjoyed this episode, follow us on Spotify or YouTube and share it with someone involved in business or technology decisions. You can also reach us at bridgingthebusinessgap@gmail.com. hosted by Jan-Hendrik Stricker and Phil Burgess.